Disclaimer before you start watching or listening to this episode. This episode contains strong language, upsetting topics, adult matters that could upset some viewers or listeners. Viewer discretion is advised.
Today's topic is mass hysteria. We wanted to prepare something that would sound a little more scientific, but it's rather difficult to do that because it's a phenomenon that is still researched, and it's very difficult to pinpoint in a scientific manner what actually is happening. But just as a very loose description, mass hysteria would probably be a group of people that would experience the same illusions.
It's basically a widespread fear and sometimes irrational.
Right.
Mainly like something or someone evil that would threaten a group of people or a society.
So it's a bunch of people that experience a huge irrational fear of something.
Yeah.
Based on rumors, usually not true.
Yeah, it's rarely based on scientific facts or even
on something that could be proven.
Or even tangible evidence.
Yeah. And it's different. I would say it's different from, or maybe it isn't. You know, when people are afraid of alien abductions, would that be considered mass hysteria? Maybe not, because it has nothing to do with the belief in that thing. It's more like how you react to a certain factor.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope the stories will make it a little bit clearer, because what I decided to research was the dancing plague. So I knew this. I thought it was a legend, to be honest. I didn't know how much of it was true, but oh boy, I had no idea what I was going into. So
it was a trip. Prepare for the trip of your life.
It was a trip. In July 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, which was at the time the Holy Roman Empire, well, it was a part of the Holy Roman Empire, a woman known as Miss Trophy stepped into the streets and began to dance. She seemed unable to stop, and she kept dancing until she collapsed from exhaustion. After resting, she resumed the compulsive dancing, and she danced for nearly a week.
Without rest?
Not necessarily without rest.
But like continuously throughout a week?
Yes. About 36 people decided to join, and by August there were about 400 people dancing in Strasbourg, and by that time all the dancing started to take its toll. People started collapsing because they were exhausted by all that dancing, and some of them even died from what is reported that were probably strokes and heart attacks. So this lasted, it started in July. It lasted till September, when it started to dial down. So people were sort of losing interest.
Were they drunk or high on something?
Well, I'll go into theories later. But to answer your question, no, not from what we know. They weren't under any influence. What I have to make clear is that the dancers, they danced involuntarily. So it was compulsive. They didn't want to dance.
So were they like dancing while their faces were like, help me, help me?
Yes, they were in pain. They were screaming for help, and they begged for mercy. They were dancing against their will. So modern theories only found two. That one says that the factor that sort of caused this phenomena was stress, and it is proven that stress induces hysteria. At that time in history, Europe was confronted with disease and famine, and they also had this belief that Saint Vitus, who was the patron saint of epileptics and of dancers, had cursed the people.
Of course.
So at the time, this was the belief. This is how they would explain it to themselves.
Yeah.
It was a curse from Saint Vitus.
Could it be a case of them being stressed and then them not sleeping, and then when you don't sleep, you go into that state of almost being high or drunk?
Perhaps.
And then they were just like tripping.
Well, that is a valid reason for being stressed, but you have to take into the account that 400 people were experiencing the same thing. So maybe you can say that, I don't know, maybe the lady that started it had severe issues. She couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, she had this strong stress. But then you have to sort of find a way to explain why all the other people were joining.
Maybe, hear me out. Can I come with a theory?
Right.
Maybe the lady was so noisy in the neighborhood that was keeping everyone up. So everyone from the neighborhood joined. And those were the 400 people, were all from the neighborhood because they were so stressed and couldn't sleep because this group of people that kept getting bigger were dancing and partying, right?
But they weren't partying because that was the problem. They didn't like it.
But maybe they were like, oh, those goddamn people, I'm gonna go and see what's happening. And then, oh, they're not actually partying. Let me just go and help. And then they just get carried away. They're not let go from like a round circle. That's not funny. Stop laughing.
I just imagine that distressed, horrified grandma neighbor going, what the hell are you doing? Oh no! Let me go!
Kind of like a Romanian wedding almost.
Right. Ew. So it would make some sense that they were in despair, so that despair created the proper conditions for a bunch of people to experience psychological reactions. But it still doesn't explain why so many people dance till their death.
How many died?
I'm not sure, but people did die because it doesn't. You would have to be so far removed from everything because you have to think that, oh, my life sucks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's shitty. It's the Middle Ages. Everybody's dying from this bullshit black plague. I don't know. We're fucking poor. We're starving. It would make sense like, oh, fuck this. Let's just dance to our death. But they were choosing an alternative of still suffering. It wasn't because there is what is that? It's a saying, dancing on the edge of a cliff. Do you know about it? Because it's sort of the same thing. Well, not really. But dancing on the edge of a cliff talks about how when put in a difficult situation, some people react in a manner that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I noticed that after the pandemic, the real estate business started to boom because people bought so many properties, which if you think about it, it doesn't
make sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually hoping for properties to go lower, and I was like, finally, I'm going to buy a house.
Exactly. And everything is so much more expensive.
Yeah.
Because people bought so much during the pandemic, which it doesn't make any sense because so many people filed for unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
People lost their jobs. The financial situation was not great.
Mm-hmm.
So why were people buying?
Were they like, YOLO? Fuck this?
Kinda. So that's what dancing on the edge of a cliff means. When you don't react, you sort of go, yeah, the YOLO mentality.
Yeah, I mean, if they didn't have any other choice of, like, if they didn't see any hope on the horizon, then...
Right.
Even if they seemed miserable and in pain, they didn't want to stop because what else was there for them? So maybe they were consciously doing it until they died.
But it's unusual because you would think that they would find, even if they had, oh, fuck it, I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
You would think that they had this realization of, you know what, I may die any day from now. So I'm gonna feel good about it today. Well, not about it, but I'm gonna feel good today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll dance and I'll party and I'll feel good about it. But they didn't. They were suffering. They wanted to stop.
Yeah, that's odd. So what other theories were there?
Well, another theory was that they suffered food poisoning.
That's what I was thinking.
That the people that started dancing had consumed bread made from rye, which was contaminated with a certain fungal disease, which is known to produce convulsions. So it would make sense. Because I do presume that, yeah, sure, dancing plague, but I don't know. How can you tell they were dancing? They were just convulsing, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Especially if they wanted to stop.
Maybe it looked like breakdancing, but they just didn't discover discover breakdancing back then.
Maybe they were ahead of the time.
That's what I was thinking, because as we've had in previous episodes, people would just use random ass poisons to replace sugar and such. And maybe they just used too much of this certain chemical and they just all got high on it. Because they were all from the same region, so it could have been a local thing. Was it present in any other town, or was it just this one?
Just wait for it.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Because as far as I know, there wasn't any reported substances that would, weed and mushrooms that would induce a certain state.
That they knew of, because medicine wasn't that advanced.
No, but we would know today.
Oh, today. Okay, yeah.
We would know that, those fucking idiots ate that stupid mushroom and it made them dance till their death. We would know about it today, but we don't. Another thing that I found interesting, that it made sense, because I kept wondering about what state of consciousness they were actually in. So the fact that their endurance levels were so high sort of indicates that they weren't fully conscious, because in a trance state they would have been far less conscious of their physical exhaustion and their pain, their swollen feet, I would imagine. So they couldn't have been fully conscious.
So how do you move your body without being fully conscious?
Well, there are multiple, there are conditions that allow you to, because even if you drink alcohol, you're not fully conscious. Well, if you drink a lot, you're not fully conscious of what, but you can move.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because I have an acquaintance has told me she got really drunk and then she completely forgot that she went to this shop and told the shop owner. Like, she had a full-on conversation with him and she didn't know until the next day when she went in and he told her.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird. I've experienced something like that. I have this thing where if I get sleepy, I really have to go to sleep because I won't be fully conscious.
Yeah, I remember.
And it happened, I think, with multiple people, where I had full-on conversations with them right before falling asleep that I do not remember. I did not remember the next day.
Yeah, again, they could have been tired and fell in their not conscious state.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I thought I was done because, the dancing plague. It's this weird legend of these people that all danced till they died. Well, this shit happened before. In 1374, in several medieval towns in the area of northeastern France and the Netherlands, people were seized by a compulsion to dance. They would rarely pause to rest or eat. Several months later, the epidemic stopped. Witnesses...
Months?
Well, the first one, which was after this one, but still, the first one I talked about was also several months. So several months later, the epidemic stopped. Witnesses also added that the victims were experiencing visions. They yelled names of the devil. They had strange aversions to pointed shoes and the color red for some reason. Maybe it was...
Were they transforming into bulls?
And it was also reported that they would say that they were drowning in a sea of blood.
I don't know what to say to this.
I know, right? Well, think about what to say to this one. In 1021, on Christmas Eve. So what is it? It was a jump of 2 centuries before the first one, which was the 16th century.
Yeah.
And now it's another jump of 2 centuries?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
So in 1021, 18 people gathered outside the church. Remember, it was Christmas. In a German town, and they started dancing. The priest was so angry that he was unable to perform mass. He was so angry that he was unable to perform mass that he wrote a chronicle about this, and he reported it as that the people were dancing in a ring dance of sin. So I would assume that they were going round and round.
Why was it of sin?
Well, because he couldn't hold the mass. They were clapping, they were leaping, and they were chanting in unison. So to me, it appears that these people were having a good time.
Yeah.
He apparently cursed them, which thank you, Father, for I have sinned. Why would he curse them?
I mean, he's saying they're the sinners, but then he goes ahead and curses them on Christmas Eve. Just
Yeah.
let the people have fun.
They were having a good time because they were happy that Jesus was born.
Maybe that had nothing to do with it. Maybe this one had nothing to do with the rest. Have you got more to tell me?
I do. So he apparently cursed them, and he cursed them to dance for a year, and they couldn't stop till next Christmas.
So for a whole year they kept dancing. How come
Right.
they didn't die?
Well, it's reported that, I don't know, the guy wrote his chronicle. This is what he wrote.
This is all based on what he wrote.
I would
Sure,
assume.
to make himself look how much power I have.
Yeah.
If you won't let me do the, what was it? Mass?
Mass.
I will curse you for a year to just dance and have fun.
Oh no. No, Father, please have mercy.
Please don't.
So they danced till next Christmas, and then they fell into a long, long sleep, and it is reported that some of them never woke up.
Jesus.
So I think this is the first incident of dancing mania recorded in history.
But it's just recorded by the priest. Should we really believe what he said?
Well, it's all we have.
Okay, fair.
If you want, you don't have to believe him.
Okay.
I won't make you. And it keeps going. In 1247, in another German town, 200 people are reported to have danced on a bridge until it collapsed, and they drowned in the water.
What is happening?
I don't know, but I'm sad to admit that I laughed at this one, because I found it hilarious that all those people were going, yay, hooray! And then the bridge just gave up. Did you notice anything about all these cases?
They're all in Europe?
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes.
It's no problem. It's sort of a cultural thing, because I think it was only in the area of Europe. The course of the epidemics also suggests that they were driven by pious fear. Dancing was thought to be both the affliction and the cure. So there were accounts of people recovering their sanity while they were dancing, and they had this moment of clarity of, whoa, what the fuck am I doing? And they could stop, but then they would start dancing again because they thought that, oh no, if I keep dancing, then the curse will be lifted.
Oh my god, it was this vicious circle.
Yeah, so maybe this was one of the reasons why it lasted so long.
So they just did it for no reason to begin with?
I'm not sure. I guess, well, they must have had some reasons, but it's just not very hard to pinpoint.
Because when I was searching moral panic and hysteria, so hysteria, the one you're focusing on, it's more closer to psychological illness rather than a moral panic, which is more of a sociological phenomenon.
Right. Yeah, these people had, I would assume that they had other issues, that it wasn't just peer pressure that made them act this way.
Because it could have started from someone that was actually mentally insane, and then others joined, and then for other reasons it kept going.
Right,
but
maybe.
Still having to do with like the stressful mental torments they were going at that time. Was it just adults that were dancing? Were there kids?
I would assume. I don't know. I couldn't find anything specific about what type of people were dancing. Oh, okay. So they would keep dancing to lift the curse. So that is why in the first, if you remember the first case I discussed, when Mrs. Truffle or whatever her name was, she started dancing, and then all those people started dancing, and there were like 400 people dancing. So in that case, authorities built people a stage, and they encouraged them to dance. They were encouraged to dance all night, and they even hired professional dancers and musicians to sort of help lift the curse, because they were
Was this like an experiment?
I don't know.
Was this like a military experiment or something at the time?
I doubted it was a military experiment.
They're like, have this
powder
in your face, and then oh, look what's happening. That's so random. There you go, a stage. It's weird.
Yeah, and it was, you can imagine that it was extremely stupid, because it led to the escalation of the epidemic, obviously. The people were encouraged to dance, and more people joined in, and everything just got worse.
Were they like, let's sell tickets, let's make this a spectacle.
Maybe they were making money.
Let's monetize on this. Yeah.
By the mid 1600s, if not before, outbreaks of compulsive dancing had ceased to torment the people of Europe, and their disappearance coincides with the demise of sort of this belief in supernaturalism. People sort of stopped believing in all that mumbo jumbo.
And maybe discovered more about mental issues.
Oh, I doubt it, because it was the
Still
1600s.
the 1600s. I don't know. I have high hopes, okay?
I would assume that by that time, economically, people started to do better and they weren't
As stressed.
right. It would make sense.
They weren't conquered every day. Maybe.
Oh, and I also found this. I wanted to include it, but I couldn't find a proper place because these ladies were doing other things. I'm not sure if they were dancing. But in 1491, in a nunnery, which I found interesting, in Spanish Netherlands, several nuns were considered to be possessed. They started to race around like dogs, jump out of trees in imitation of birds, or act like cats. They would meow, they would claw their way up in tree trunks. Over the next 200 years, in nunneries everywhere from Rome to Paris, hundreds were plunged into states of frantic delirium, which led them to scream and convulse and foam at their mouths, which maybe they had other issues.
Yeah.
And they were actually... I'm sorry, I'm laughing. They would start sexually proposing priests.
Yeah. That just sounds like female hysteria.
I think it just sounds like those women that were sheltered for so long from everything were just, hey, maybe I would have to, I would like to experience what this thing called sex, which is so not okay for me. I would like to see how it goes. And maybe, oh no, I'm being possessed is a pretty good excuse.
Yeah. It was more believable rather than being like, oh yeah, I've decided I'm not a nun anymore. No, I've been possessed.
Yeah, because then you can go like after a week when you calm down.
Yeah, true. That's actually smart.
I know. You can go back to, oh no, I'm just a nun now.
Yeah, I'm the same innocent lady. Damn. I never ever thought of events like this from this point of view. And the more I research into like the 1600s, 1800s, it's like because they had so many other explanations for things like mental conditions, like just scientific explanations that they didn't discover yet.
Yeah.
The reasons what they had back in the day are so interesting. And I'm like, now I can see how the mortality rate was up, how people were nasties. It just makes sense the more I look into it.
I find it more interesting that I always have to remember, because I think we have a sort of patronizing view of the people of the past. Where, because we know so much more now, we think that we're smarter than they were.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that. I think it's different stages because people in the future can look at us like, look at those dumbasses.
I think those people were sort of motivated by things that motivate us too.
Yeah. They just had different ways of explaining things.
Right.
Yeah.
I find it interesting. There were still people. So that was my part of this discussion.
It was interesting because I was like, because I'm taking notes now, so I can remember what you're talking about. And it was like, oh yeah, Germany, Netherlands, France. This is all just in Europe. So it was maybe like a cultural / religious thing.
I would assume.
How they would explain it.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I do think it has to do with the psychology of the times, like how the times affected people mentally and how they would react to things.
Right, because I thought about the fact that maybe dancing was associated with something very specific in their time. Maybe it was something that you only did at weddings.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that. I would assume that they weren't doing it very often. Maybe it was something, well, it definitely was religion and superstition, the whole curse of Saint Vitus and whatever. But it would be interesting to know what the act of dancing meant to the people of those days.
Yeah, because if you think of it, for example, balls, only people in the high classes would go to balls, right?
Right.
And they would go and dance and promenade and everything. Like the middle and lower class wouldn't attend that. They would just be constantly working. So maybe because they couldn't have the opportunity to dance as much, they're like, oh, fuck it. You know, I'm gonna dance in the street.
Yeah, but would they know what was going on in those parties that the upper class were taking?
Yeah, I mean, it's called a ball. There's gonna be dancing.
No, but would they know what that meant? How would they know?
Gossip. Newspapers.
Newspapers.
Well, okay, not newspapers. Gossip. Gossip is the oldest human interaction ever.
Maybe.
Of course they know what the people do. Do you not know the story of Bloody Mary and how people would gossiping about her and her period?
Oh, that's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Because it's presumed that all of the Bloody Mary shit was actually a political move and that she was sort of framed. So the story kind of goes that people wanted to get rid of Elizabeth of Bathory.
I knew that.
So they were trying to get rid of her, and they sort of made up this story that she murdered all those girls.
Do you mean gossip?
Right. I would assume that she did murder some people.
I mean, fucking royalties were crazy back in the day.
Yeah. Well, fucking CEOs are fucking crazy these days.
Yeah.
It's just another form of aristocracy.
Yeah.
So tell me about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. There's a lot to say before that, because I need to put it into context. And
right.
Because it's included in the umbrella of moral panic / satanic panic, I need to explain and give a context. So
go on, I'm listening, I'm all ears.
The difference between moral panic and mass hysteria was, as I said, that moral panic is closer to a psychological illness and mass hysteria is rather like sociological phenomenon. So, Satanic Panic was characterized by allegations of satanic ritual abuse. So, I'm gonna say SRA, because I don't want to keep saying that, it's too long. And SRA in general is very controversial because it was brought into focus by religious groups and police investigators, child rights activists, and the whole context in which the Satanic Panic and the SRA was evolved in the 1980s was so much. So I'm just going to focus on just these two cases and then go further into the D&D, Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. I think that's the more popular thing people usually think about, even today, which kind of sucks, man, because everybody loves these games. Yeah. And they're actually, even today, they're fucking popular. They made them, I think a few years ago, they made them sort of more accessible.
Yeah, there's a PG version and then there's an adult version. It's roleplay. It's like roleplay is amazing now because you can just put yourself into the shoes of that character in that world and escape. Anyway, we'll get there. So the whole phenomenon of Satanic Panic started with a book. It was this book called Michelle Remembers, and it was written by Lawrence Pasder Lawrence. So he wrote this about his psychiatric patient called Michelle Smith, and he said he used recovered memory therapy to make the claims that his patient, Michelle Remembers, was the subject of SRA. So he claimed that through his psychiatric methods, he brought back memories that his patient went through rituals of...
I would assume hypnosis.
Yeah. I think so. So this contributed to the rise of the panic and the spread of it because it was a book. But the book was claiming everything was true. But like the police went and investigated and there was no actual proof found that anything they were claiming was true. So the police actually claimed that this was just fantasy and it's just what it was selling at the time. So he just kind of manipulated or abused. He just used the platform to just instigate fear in people, and because more people were scared, they were like, oh, what are you scared about? Let me just read about it. So more people got scared. And then at the same time there was a very public case, a court case about, it's called the Mcmartin Preschool trial, where members of the Mcmartin family were operating a preschool daycare and they would sexually abuse the children in their care.
Oh.
So that was very, very, it was everywhere. So it was in the media constantly and people were getting all the insights into this case. And this combined with the book, because during the case, there's so much to the case. Like we could do a complete new video about it. They were saying that the kids would see witches and they would sing certain songs for like the ritual, like the satanic ritual. It was so much. But then they found out that the kids were saying things. For example, the investigators showed them a picture of
Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris, yes.
Well, that's
Yes.
what I remember.
Yeah.
That they were reporting these crazy things.
Yeah, it was crazy it was reported.
Satanists were sacrificing babies and they were throwing them in the toilet, and then they would get into the sewers and there they would get sacrificed. But I don't know, how do you put a baby in a toilet and it lives?
Honestly, it doesn't have to make sense.
And then Chuck Norris was there. It was the dumbest shit. I think, well, no, because it does sound like something, like a story that a kid would come up with. It was in the toilet and then we were in the sewers and Chuck Norris was there.
Yeah.
It does sound stupid. I think the problem was that people believed them.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of people were thrown in prison. I don't know if it was this case specifically.
Yeah, no, there were people that were thrown in prison.
Right, and it's so ridiculous.
Because even the judges, because of the book and because there were more and more religious groups that were saying, oh my God, all these people are saying they've been put through satanic rituals, therefore there are people that are practicing it, therefore it's real. All these religious people would put this into the world and even everyone knew about it. So like judges were scared, everyone was scared because they didn't know if it was, well, people were saying it's true, but they didn't actually have facts. So the media in the 1980s and 1990s just added gasoline to the fire, and the United States were just under this veil of moral panic. And because it was so widely talked about, everyone knew the details and they were scared, like the judges, and a lot of people got thrown in prison based on claims because no one could prove it.
Obviously.
Like there were no literal evidence. And obviously, like from other cases that I've seen at the time, a lot of investigators would link certain killers would do things because they thought they belonged to us, like a cult or a satanic cult. Remember the X-Files had so many episodes on this.
Right.
Because
they did. I think it was Manson, and then there was the other guy. It was Richard Ramirez. They sort of claimed, they were caught, and they sort of claimed that, they did all this shit for the devil or whatever the fuck. And obviously it was bullshit. Yeah,
like people now in current times studied all the phenomenon that happened in the 80s and 90s and concluded that, and I quote, involved hundreds of accusations that devil-worshipping pedophiles were operating America's white middle-class suburban daycare centers. And I end quote. That was like what they're thinking everyone was thinking. So they thought people in power would use daycares as their ground for innocent souls. I don't know.
Isn't that Oh my god, I don't want to offend anyone, but
Off the record.
off the record, right? Isn't that sort of what it happens today? Like this sort of, oh, powerful people are abusing children and they're doing it for Satan. It's still in today's culture in a way.
It is. It's just called differently.
What is that guy? Little Nas X? Didn't he come up with the
Yes!
song? What,
Oh,
2 months ago?
yeah.
What was it? And everyone was losing their minds because, oh no, he was with the devil in hell, and no one got
He came out with a devil shoes.
right, and the devil shoes with the blood in them, which isn't blood. Obviously, it isn't blood. Calm down, people. It's marketing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it works because people reacted that way.
Yeah. Again, it was marketing for this book, which caused this phenomenon with the book. Michelle remembers. It wasn't true. That was all fiction.
Well, no, but you have to think about the fact that it only works in a certain context. Like if, I don't know, take the Scandinavian countries.
Mm-hmm.
Take Sweden, Norway, Finland. If something like that would happen there, if Little Nas X would come up with his little shoes in Finland, no one would give a shit. And I feel like it's sort of the same thing with the pedophiles, because when was it even got, because that guy, what's his name? Chris Hansen.
Yeah.
With the Predator, what is it? How to Catch a Predator?
Yeah. How to Catch a Predator.
No, it's just to catch. I don't think it's how to.
To catch a predator.
It's not a tutorial, even though people took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
And people are still doing it today.
And it's fake.
Even if it's not, it's because I think that there are people that are actually trying to do it, to catch predators. I'm with you. I think it's wrong that people abuse children, obviously. But it's in 9 times out of 10, people that do these vigilante justice things, they obstruct real justice. And the people that do those crazy shit can face trials because all the evidence is compromised now because you tampered with it.
Yeah.
I just find it so interesting that they have the same, I don't know, sensibilities. People still have the same sensibilities thinking about pedophiles, because obviously it's the worst fucking thing ever. But with the devil, it's still really weird.
There were around 12,000 nationwide accusations about SRA activity, and but investigators could never find any concrete evidence of satanic ritual abuse. So it's been happening all throughout history. If you think of it about small minorities, the McCarthyism in the 1950s, when there was this communist movement, people were just being accused left and right that they were communists.
Yeah. Sort of makes sense. It doesn't, but it does.
In the social spectrum of that time, the fears make sense, but if you look back on them, it's like the witch trials, the witch hunts, they don't make sense, do they?
That's also very unusual, because I would assume you're talking about the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
The American version of the witch trials, which happened rather late, I think, because the English had their own version of the witch trials, which happened way earlier, and it was really hardcore. From what I remember, I think there were villages in Germany, I think, where there were no women left.
Fucking hell.
Right, but I think that happened about 2-3 centuries before the Salem witch trials. Right, which happened rather late. And I even think that I think that sort of officials from England wrote to the people in Salem and told them, like, dude, don't do that. We tried it. It was a bad idea.
Oh my god. So there were factors that contributed to the rise and the apparition of the Satanic Panic up to the 1980s. And that was, churches were being more politically active, so they were more out there. They were making statements. They were just more active from a political point of view. Like, they weren't just there for you to go on Sunday. They were just being actively promoting their views, you know?
Oh, I see.
The anti-cult movement, which started, and just cults in general, not just satanic cults in general. And they were accused of brainwashing and abusing children. Again, it was a children-oriented.
Oh, because you may be talking about Jonestown and the Rajneeshis.
Yeah, there were a lot of things happening at the same time. So if you add that to Satan being present...
Right.
Oh, yeah, and the Church of Satan established, which confirmed everyone's fears.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so everyone was like, aha, I knew it.
What was that guy's name? If you read about it and because he was a fucking weird guy, but the thing is that sort of the practices of the Satanists were okay things, like maybe don't rape people. Oh, okay, I can agree with that. Don't do anything that other people don't want you to, like, don't hurt people.
Yeah, like the Church of Satan is barely a political movement.
And it wasn't, because what I think I was trying to say, but I stumbled on my words, was that the Church of Satan didn't mean the belief in Satan.
No.
It was sort of this atheism.
It was just to represent the exact opposite. No, it was just taking a bad figure portrayed by Christianity and turn it into something good and make a point. It was literally to make a point. They didn't actually believe in Satan and did rituals. There's a full Netflix documentary that I found really interesting. It's called The Church of Satan. Okay, another factor was that social work evolved more and the Department of Child Protective Services evolved as well. And they were struggling to get sexual abuse recognized as a serious crime, which blew my mind.
It wasn't until that point?
It wasn't a serious crime, I don't think.
Excuse me?
Yeah. And also PTSD became more popularized as well as repressed memory. So that's why that guy's book, when he talks about repressed memory and like people knew more about it because of the wars and...
Don't you hate it how a good idea comes along with a bad idea? Like, oh, PTSD should be recognized. Oh, wonderful. Repressed memories are fucking hiding inside your mind and only hypnosis can bring them out. Yeah, sure. Thank you very much.
Now let's just make a book about something that's not true and say it's hypnosis.
And make a bunch of money.
Now what does all of that have to do with Dungeons and Dragons, you may ask, right? A role-play board game.
Right.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I don't even think they have demons in Dungeons and Dragons.
They do. They actually use the words demons and that. Yeah.
No.
So during the 1980s and 1990s, religious groups would accuse any fantasy of role-playing related activity that were promoting witchcraft and Satanism. So anything that involved any kind of ritual and had witches, because you know the history of witches back in the day, the churches would be like, you're practicing Satanism, you can't do any type of ritual because you're calling for Satan, you know?
That thing blows my mind, that they had the Salem witch trials and they didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
They were, no, witches are a real thing, trust me, man.
We still haven't found them yet. But
but they are real.
There, trust me. Yeah. And also because the youth was perceived as easy to manipulate and not able to distinguish the difference between reality and fantasy. So adults were like, oh, you youths, you can't make the difference between what's real and what's not. So you can be very easily influenced by a board game. They were an easy target for demonic influences if they played those games, because they were just easily manipulated. So that was the theory the churches were going with, yeah? That was the tactic.
I'm sorry. Did the church call people dumb for playing tabletop games?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's rich coming from a bunch of people that still believed in witches.
I mean, they're playing based on their own board game and rules, right? The Bible is the book of rules for life. based on
What
their...
pisses me off so much is that I think if we want to play today Dungeons and Dragons, it's much easier for us.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we don't have to customize. We can buy all that shit from, I don't know, Amazon.
Yeah.
But back then, you had to sort of make all those tiny figures and paint them the way you wanted. And then, well, you could technically do that today, but I don't think you had that option. Oh, maybe you did. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is that it's such a creative outlet. It's so dependent on imagination.
Yeah, but too much imagination can be harmful. If you think too much.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Satan thought too much. Look where he's now. Probably offending a lot of people.
Damn it. We're sorry, people. No, because I think because it has nothing to do with, we shouldn't offend people, because we're not talking about people that just, believe in God and go to church. This is those real weirdos that want to control everyone else.
Yeah.
So I choose to think that people that believe in all that thing, well, you know what? Yeah, they shouldn't listen to this, right?
No.
Because it makes sense. Like, we don't want you people. Go away.
Yeah, we're just sifting through the bads and goods. I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway.
No, me neither. Keep going.
Religious groups claim that playing Dungeons and Dragons was like a ritual where youths were allowing the demons and other satanic elements to enter them. It became a huge thing because of elements of magic and witchcraft in the game were completely opposite to what the Bible was preaching. Okay, so now that we have the religious people's views, there were a lot of other things that were happening, like in 1979 and then in 1980. But in 1979, a 16-year-old, his name was James Dallas. He was a child prodigy, and he went missing from his university dorm. The family hired a private investigator to find him, and this private investigator knew that he was playing D&D, so he thought that it was the game's fault that he went missing. But when in fact James was suffering from depression and drug addiction, and he went into hiding for a while, while he was in a period of self-harming. So he was just at his lowest and he just wanted to leave. Unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide in 1980. A lot of activists thought because he was playing the game, that's what made him kill himself, basically. They were just disregarding all the mental health issues he had.
Yeah, that's
completely.
So tragic. Because right there was a good opportunity
to help him, truly.
Yeah, to help him and to be able to talk about this thing, and so because it was popular and the case got popular, sort of because that private investigator came up with a dumb theory, and it was a really good time to talk about this kid has issues that we have to address. We have to talk about it in order to help him.
When he went into hiding, he went into this tunnel where a lot of other Dungeons and Dragons players were meeting to play. So that was what made the investigator connect the fact that he went into that tunnel where the game was happening, like everyone was playing the game. So that made him do what he did.
He might have not played the game?
No, he was playing the game. He was a player.
Oh, okay, I get it.
But because he kept going into the tunnel, that's where he went into hiding. It was
wait a minute. Why were they playing in the tunnel?
Because it was frowned upon. So, they were probably finding a place where no one would bother them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense, yeah.
And then, again in 1982, another high school student named Lee Pulling committed suicide because he had, quote, trouble fitting in, end quote. But his mother believed that the game was at fault again. And the mom actually tried to sue the school because his Lee was actually playing a game at school. So the the principal organized a game day, and he was playing Dungeons and Dragons at school. So she thought that, oh, you're organizing all these satanic rituals, let me sue you, because that's why my son killed himself. So she described the game as, and I quote, it's a long quote, a fantasy role-playing game which uses demonology, witchcraft, voodoo, murder, rape, blasphemy, suicide, assassination, insanity, sex perversion, homosexuality, prostitution, satanic-type rituals, gambling, barbarism, cannibalism, sadism, desecration, demon summoning, necromantics, divination, and other tactics. End quote.
Wow.
That's what she thought. She thought about the game, and she started a campaign and a group, a one-person group kind of. Well, she wanted to have this movement to ban the game, so she was actively searching to ban the game. She had help from conservative Christians and the Christian outlets, so like whatever they were using to promote their beliefs, she was using as well to get the game banned.
Did she want to call the movement MAD?
No, it was bad.
It was bad because I was thinking about MAD with 2 Ds. I think it's Moms Against Drunk Driving.
Yeah, it was bothered about Dungeons and Dragons. So it's
Bothered.
BADD. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just bothered.
Another case was a murder case this time. So members of Dungeons and Dragons, so basically people that were playing it, were involved in a 1988 murder. So his name was Chris Pritchard, who is a student, again, mainly students. He allegedly organized the murder of his stepfather for his $2 million fortune. So he wanted to kill his dad because he wanted the money. And he was at the same time playing Dungeons and Dragons. So people were like, aha, another one. They were both attacked into their own homes. And he also worked with 2 of his classmates. During the investigation, the police people discovered that he wasn't in the greatest relationship with his dad, so he also started getting involved with drugs and alcohol.
Oh.
So again, nothing to do with the game. He was literally having a not so great life. But what the investigators linked this murder to the Dungeons and Dragons, it was that they found a game map of his own house. Again, another link. So that was like a direct arrow pointing towards the fact that the game had something to do.
I am so confused, but why was this
Why are you confused?
Why was this one? Okay, so I get it. He was a Satanist and that's why he killed his dad, because he was playing Dungeons and Dragons. But why was the map of his house sort of appropriated for the game? Why was that evidence?
Because it was like he's using the game's methods. So like once you maybe... This is just what I'm thinking. This is just my own opinion, okay?
Right.
Maybe because he used the game tactics to make a map of his house that was like using satanic ways of involving personal, real life stuff, and therefore it has influence on it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I do not know what you mean.
Okay, never mind.
Like a portal? Like what?
Yes, not like a portal, but like you're using this game, aka Satanic Ritual, to basically plan the murder of your father, which maybe would help, if you have if you have Satan's help to do things.
And Satan can only find me if I draw him a map.
Through Dungeons and Dragons, yes.
I get it.
Thank you. Where I think they're coming from. I think they're just looking for any reason to connect the two.
Yeah, I have to write that one down, just in case I want to use it later.
So all 3 young men were put in prison. Oh, okay.
And they should.
The angle the investigators were going with was that Chris had a controlling role in the game, and they believed he controlled his 2 accomplices through the game.
Oh my god, I hate this. Because wouldn't it make more sense? And wouldn't it be easier to convict them? Because, what was it, $2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he promised them on money, obviously. So isn't it that easier to prove in court than, oh no, he was playing this dumb shit and he was doing all this crazy.
I don't know the official convictions they got. This is just what some detectives believed. I don't know if this actually made to court because I haven't looked into this particular case.
Because if you think about it in the way they presented it, like, oh no, he was controlling them, then you're absolving them of everything. They didn't know what they were doing. So they're innocent? That's what you're trying to say?
But I think they were approaching it through this lens because people knew so much more about the satanic codes and rituals. They thought that it would give them a bigger chance with the jury if they played this card.
How?
Because they were already frightened. I don't think they needed reason. I don't think they were even that concerned with details. I don't know. Again, I'm talking out of my ass because
American justice system.
Because sometimes they just run with what's most plausible that would impress the jurors. It's a theatrical act.
Right.
Like, you can show the jurors as much evidence as you want, but if you tell them a good story, that's what they're gonna go with.
Yeah.
And I've seen cases of this and I was like, how the fuck? It's frustrating, I know. There were also at the same time a lot of books and films made that had elements of roleplay used as a way of summoning the devil. So they were actually using this in films, like, oh, let me roleplay this and summon the devil. And they were like, aha!
Wasn't there...
The film did it.
Wasn't there a thing... Did I dream this? Is there a movie about... What is it called? It's not called Dungeons and Dragons.
No, it's something similar. Yes, it is.
And it has Tom Hanks.
Monsters and something. Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't dream that.
No, you didn't.
Man, that's the dumbest shit. I love Tom Hanks with all my heart. I love him so much, but that is the dumbest shit ever.
Have you actually seen it?
No, but I assume that if it's based on this crazy...
I mean, it's Tom Hanks, you never know.
Conspiracy.
He could have done a really good job. Turn around that film. No scientific links have been ever found between suicide and Dungeons and Dragons.
No,
and there were a lot of statistical work done that I didn't want to go into, but I kind of skimmed through it. So a lot of statistic work has been done, like people that play this game and then how many people have committed suicide from this and then how many had other problems in their lives that could have led to that.
You would assume that it probably helped because it was sort of, you had to play with a group of friends, you had a hobby, which meant that you
if your life is miserable and then you're role-playing this, you're like living a different life in which you are in control, so it kind of helps you take your mind off of your personal issues. And the game was changed a lot of times, especially during that time, to be more PG, PC, PG. Which one?
PG.
But since then, they have released, as I said, different versions currently to be like for children and then for adults, and they reintroduced the original terms, like the demonology terms that were there in the beginning, because now people are not interested in that view anymore and there's no more preconceptions about it. Oh yeah, and as time, this was interesting because throughout time since then, people started, like parents in general, stopped being so concerned with Dungeons and Dragons because they were more concerned of videos now and games.
Oh, right.
And the gore that was presented in videos like YouTube and games.
That's right.
So it's the same thing, it's just the focus has changed and maybe it's less satanic focus. Oh
my God. Yeah.
And that was my case.
Thank you for your case.
It was actually interesting because, like, just reading about just Dungeons and Dragons under the Satanic Panic umbrella was like, what the fuck were they freaking out about?
Yeah.
But then if you take all the, again, social aspect of it, and what was happening from other influences, like the PTSD was becoming more popular, religious groups were more active. It's like...
Well, you can sort of see how it grew. I'm not entirely sure that you can
I can't rationalize it. No.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something equivalent to that nowadays. Maybe we should do an episode on that.
Well, I think you just mentioned it. It's the video games.
The video games and...
that cause mass shootings.
I'm also interested to find out what people think about the Church of Satan now.
I think it's pretty much the same. It's just that the numbers of, how do I say this without offending people?
Just say it. YOLO. Let's start dancing.
of crazy Christians is lower.
No, just say extreme Christians.
Extreme Christians. That's how I'm supposed to say it. So I think,
just say it again.
I just think that the numbers of extreme Christians is lower, maybe. So you don't have that panic that of, oh no, it's the devil, it's gonna take our children or whatever. And you also have,
I just think,
internet now, so you would assume that because you have so much more information, it would be more difficult to maybe manipulate people into believing.
But it's weird.
Oh, I know one.
On the other spectrum, you have to think that we're in this bubble. Like, you have to think of the bubble we're in, and
That's
the fact
true.
that we don't get in contact with people like that.
That's true.
But as I've seen a lot of documentaries, and there are so many groups of extreme religious people. And when you look at them and their followers, it's like, it just sounds crazy to us, but we seem crazy to them. So it's just the bubble we're in.
Yeah. And
the social media, if anything, is spreading more misinformation.
That too. And you also have to think about the fact that even if you are connected to everything, you still have your own bubble where you decide to expose yourself to the information that sort of suits your beliefs.
Suits you, yeah. That's curated for you.
Because I was thinking about the fact that one mass panic today is the anti-vax movement.
Yes, yeah.
Which, again, it's sort of, I think we're offending a bunch of people.
I don't care, it's my opinion. It's an opinion.
You know what? Yeah, you should feel offended if you don't want to vaccinate your kids. You should be very offended.
We're going there, people. No, it's my opinion. It's not like if I had a conversation with someone face to face, I wouldn't say this. Because it's my opinion.
The thing is that I don't know if we can put it under this umbrella of mass panic.
It is mass panic.
It is.
It is. And because of social media, it's getting even more and more spread. Like, the false information is so easy to spread. And people just see a title and they don't even research into it. And they just start believing that. And our parents' generations are the case, and older generations. I know of a lot of people, they just read the title, don't even go into the article. The title is clickbaity, and then they just believe it. And then they go like, oh yeah, don't eat potatoes anymore, they have zinc in them. And then the article could have been about this potato farm that had a zinc poisoning. I don't know. You know?
Yeah. Or maybe it was written in bad faith.
Yeah.
Maybe the flat earth.
I don't think that's a panic,
movement.
though, because it's not hurting you.
See, that's the thing, because I can't decide whether, well, maybe anti-vax is a panic, because it does hurt people.
When it starts hurting other people, and you're starting to influence and like try to change other people's lives and views as well, I don't know. Because like the flat earth, yeah, you can believe in that, but it doesn't change anything, you know?
Yeah, it's not just a belief. You have to have an impact on the people surrounding you. So that you have to act according to your belief and do something that hurts people. Yeah. So yeah, maybe anti-vax would be considered a mass panic. Thanks for listening, I guess. Stay tuned for next topic, which will be a surprise. Mostly because we haven't decided yet.
You don't have to subscribe or anything. If you don't like the topics, that's fine. People that would like the topics would, though. Yeah, we're not really on social media, are we? We're just like on Instagram. But yeah, do your thing. As long as you enjoy the episodes, that's fine.
Thanks for listening.
Okay, bye.
Bye.